Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ghost Story Café. My name is Megan, and through this podcast series, I'm always hoping to explore some different topics surrounding the supernatural, and I'm also hoping to learn a little bit more through this experience. For today's episode, I'm going to be focusing in on some chilling winter tales. I hope that everyone out there had a very lovely holidays, and I wanted to take a moment to say Happy New Year to everybody. Although Christmas has come and gone, I wanted to share an interesting article that I found with you guys. I thought that it might be something you would find interesting too. So this article in particular, it came from the CBC. I'll make sure also to include a link to it in the description. That way you guys can check it out and read it a little bit more for yourself. But this article was saying that at one point in history, seems like it would have been sometime in the mid to late 1800s, that it was actually very common for people to share ghost stories during Christmas and during the holiday season. That was something that I was really surprised by, and it wasn't something that I had ever heard before. Definitely thought that it was neat. In the article, they also had mentioned that, there's a couple of different Christmas stories that kind of feature ghosts and have kind of like a paranormal story to it. One that I'm sure probably most people would recognize would be Christmas Carol. And, you have the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. So that was one of the examples that they gave. And interestingly enough, it's not something that I actually had picked up on, but they mentioned the song The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. And they said that there's one line in particular in that song that actually does make a reference to telling ghost stories at Christmas. So, although Christmas has come to an end now, perhaps if any of you were interested or wanted to try and find it, maybe give another listen to It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year and see if you can find the part in the song that makes reference to ghosts. The one thing in particular that I thought was really nice about that article was that, doing this podcast, I wasn't 100% sure, what specifically to talk about as far as ghost stories go for the holiday season. And not only that, but Christmas more than ever seems to kind of feel like the one time of year, that's joyful and merry, and not necessarily a time of year that people would be talking about paranormal topics and ghost stories. So I thought that was kind of cool to look back in the history and see that that's something that was common practice. So this obviously doesn't seem to be a tradition that happens anymore. Certainly not in my family. I'm not sure if maybe anyone out there would tell spooky ghost stories on Christmas night or during the holidays, but it seems like that's kind of a tradition that's not stuck around so much anymore, but still something I thought was cool. Have any of you maybe heard of this before? If so, let me know, and let me know what you think. With that being said, I'm going to be discussing 2 chilling winter stories, and I really hope that you guys will enjoy them. So the first story that I'm going to be discussing today is something that I heard, it would have been a few years ago now. It's probably one of my favorite paranormal stories that I've heard, and it is actually a story that comes out of Montreal, Canada. So just to give a little bit of a backstory, this is something that would have been taking place sometime in the mid to late 1800s, and it was surrounding the story of a man named Simon McTavish. So who exactly was he? Simon McTavish, he was originally from Scotland. He immigrated to Canada and was living in Montreal. At the time, he was very wealthy. He was a fur trader, and he also founded the Northwest Company. So, he was settling into Montreal, decided that he was going to build himself a large home. He built this magnificent castle, which is where he lived with his wife. He married a French-Canadian woman after living in Montreal for a little while, and they had a couple of children together as well. At this time, things seemed to be going quite well, but sadly, Simon McTavish, he did become ill. He had pneumonia, and he passed away actually quite young. He was only 54 years old when he died. So after his death, some different unusual kind of things started to take place on Mount Royal, which is where his house, which was more like a castle, was located. So people in the town below, they made these crazy claims, made calls in, saying that they were seeing what looked to be Simon McTavish's spirit tobogganing down Mount Royal. Now, what was even more unusual about this story was that when people were saying they saw this, it wasn't an ordinary toboggan that Simon was going down the hill on. It was, in fact, actually his coffin. So this is something that people claim to see quite often. And it was really terrifying, of course, for all of these people. They didn't really know what to make of something like that. And I don't think I would know what to make of that either if I saw it, to be totally honest. So that wasn't all. In addition to seeing what they thought was Simon's ghost tobogganing down the hill, people in Montreal also claimed that in the evenings when they would look up at the castle, they swore that they could see Simon McTavish dancing on the roof of his castle. People also claimed that they could hear ghostly sounds on the mountain at night. They said that they could see what looked like his spirit going in and out of the windows, in and out of the doors at night. And they really truly believed that what they were seeing was his spirit, his ghost. Of course, people that were hearing these kind of crazy claims of people seeing this, they tried to make rational explanations of different things that it could be. But people were pretty certain that what they were seeing was something supernatural. And because of this, a lot of people were afraid to go anywhere near Mount Royal. People in response to these claims would say that, maybe they were just seeing the moon reflecting off of the castle at night, tried to rationalize these different things. As far as seeing the spirit of Simon McTavish toboggan down the Mount Royal, there was one kind of explanation that did seem to make a little bit of sense. One of the explanations that people today have as to why maybe they saw the spirit of Simon McTavish going down on a toboggan, a more rational explanation was that the local university, their science department, they often were looking for cadavers so that they could study and research their sciences at the university. Because of this, at times they would use human cadavers, and sadly during that time they would obtain them illegally. And they would take bodies. So their explanation is that perhaps what they were seeing was actually people sending the bodies down Mount Royal. Definitely a bit of a dark explanation, but that's something looking back that people say it could have been, and perhaps it wasn't actually the spirit of Simon. Of course, it's hard to say. While that might explain the tobogganing ghost theory about Simon McTavish, it still doesn't explain the different things that people experience seeing around his castle. So seeing what looked like his spirit going in and out of the windows, dancing on the roof at night. Maybe you might think it was moonlight just reflecting off of the roof, off the windows, but these people at the time, they really truly believed what they were seeing was a ghost. So what exactly became of the story of Simon McTavish? So it's been quite a long time now since anyone has reported seeing his ghost. Many years ago, after his death, they decided to tear down the castle that he had built, where he had lived with his family. They also buried the mausoleum where his body was located. And after that took place, people in Montreal claimed that that's when sightings of Simon McTavish also ended. So maybe there's a connection between that. It would certainly seem that way. And it looks like in one of the articles that I was reading about Simon McTavish, it's been actually about 150 years since anyone has reported any sightings of him. So if you're planning a trip to Montreal anytime soon and you're potentially going to be in the Mount Royal area, I wouldn't get your hopes up. I'm not so sure that you'll see Simon McTavish. So I always really enjoyed that story. It kind of gave me a good chuckle the first time that I heard it. There's a really awesome group located out of Montreal. It looks like they do different haunted tours. And every once in a while, it looks like they'll also put out a podcast episode talking about some different haunted stories and different ghost stories of Montreal. So I'll also include a link to that under the description. That way you can check it out some more. Really cool story. Kind of goes back a little bit in history, but it's still a story that people talk about a lot today. And in the article I was reading, they even said that the story of the Toboggan Ghost of Simon McTavish is actually one of the most famous Canadian ghost stories. So, I don't know. What do you guys think of that story? Do you believe that it could have been the ghost of Simon McTavish? Or do you believe that maybe there's a more rational explanation for what people in Montreal were seeing at that time? I searched actually for that story for so long and was not able to find anything, so I was actually a little bit worried that maybe I imagined it, especially because it seems like such kind of an outrageous story and something just so way out there in left field, but there really is a ghost story in Canadian history about a tobogganing ghost. So there you go. I'm not crazy. So I have another story that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. This one is a pretty special story. It comes from my grandfather, Gary. So I can remember hearing this story growing up, and I was always really fascinated by it. It comes up a lot in conversation during the holiday season and during the winter months because it was a story, or rather an experience that happened to him around the holidays. So this is an experience that my grandfather holds very dear to his heart, and I'm excited to be sharing it with you guys today. I really hope that you enjoy it. And the title of this story is called A Christmas Miracle. About 1 week before Christmas 1996, I was walking uptown to our local mall. I was in shopping around and noted I couldn't get things here I would need for my teenage daughter and son. I could catch a bus across the street at the SMT bus station. I crossed the street and was heading towards the telephone pole, where the bus stopped. A young lady was standing there, waiting for the bus also. I did notice something unusual about this lady. Her hair was golden, shiny, and flowing back with the cool breeze. When I say cool breeze, it was minus 20 degrees Celsius that night, and that's not counting the wind chill. It was about 8:30 at night. I personally had a full parka with a hood pulled up and scarf, and I was still freezing. After a few moments, I asked this girl, she looked about 20 years old, if she would like to wait inside the SMT bus terminal. We were waiting for City Transit East bus. She stated calmly, "No thanks, I'm not cold." In a few moments, I asked again, and truthfully concerned because it was such a cold night. This time she turned around and faced me. She was dressed in the most perfect way. She had a navy blue tunic with gold buttons down the front, and a long, full-length navy blue skirt or robe, and oh yes, a gentle smile, as she looked straight at me. All of a sudden, I looked just down the street. I would say about 75 to 100 feet away came several children about 4 to 6 years old at most. They were holding hands and laughing. There were no grown-ups around with these little ones. They had their hands clasped together, and more than took up the whole sidewalk. By the way, none of these children had on any winter clothes, no hats or mittens. The children came joyfully running towards us, locked hand in hand, joyfully laughing and having a great time. Remember, it's minus 20 degrees with wind chill factor, and these little ones and this lady are dressed and acting like it's July. My first thought was to step in front of this lady so these little ones would not knock her down. They came running by, and I had a sort of stern look, thinking, "Don't you bother this nice lady." As they came alongside us, the funniest thing happened. The littlest one closest to me stopped. He turned his head sideways, and truthfully made the same scrunched face that I was making. At this time of year, around Christmas, I especially look back and think about that little cherub and wish I could see his little face again. It was at this time the lady spoke up and said, "The bus is coming." I looked around and did not see it. The children completely vanished, and there was no sign of them anywhere. The lady said, "Over there." It was just after she said this, I saw the bus pull out from behind a corner building 2 blocks away. She must be able to see through buildings, I thought. As the bus pulled up, she gets on. I am right behind her. Then the strangest thing, her long skirt or shawl opens up and completely blocks my view of the bus driver. She then moves with super speed toward the back of the bus. It is here where I summarize what is happening. The lady did not put any money in the bus change machine, and the bus driver did not see this lady. I think that I may have only seen her. I went right behind this woman all the way to the back of the bus. Well, I sat just across from the back door. I did not want her to get the wrong impression. So now the bus goes on its way. I did not look back at all while we were traveling to Walmart on East St. John. The bus driver made no stops along the way, though there are a few stops. No one had gotten on or off. And remember, I was directly across the side door towards back. When the bus driver stopped at Walmart, I simply said, "I will nod good evening to this lady when I leave the bus." But she wasn't there. I was shocked. This lady was not on the bus. The bus driver made no stops. No one had gotten off or on the bus, yet she simply wasn't there. After shopping at Walmart and heading home, it had been quite an evening, though really everything I have written fell into place as soon as I went into my bedroom. It was then I looked directly at the picture of Sister Mary Faustina on the wall and said, "My God, I just met that lady." And then at the end of his story, my grandfather has a photo of Mary Faustina with written beside it, "To this I am without a doubt we have met and conversed on earth." This picture of Mary Faustina is exactly the lady I met uptown and have witnessed 1 week before Christmas in 1996. So I will be sure to also include a picture of that so that you guys are able to see it. When I was growing up, I was always really fascinated by that story. My grandfather, Gary, he has all kinds of really interesting experiences that he's been through, but this story, I would have to say, is probably my favorite because I just have no idea how to possibly rationalize it, how to explain it. I know everybody out there has different beliefs and different feelings about these things, but I always have had kind of just that feeling in my stomach that whatever he experienced that day, it must have been something kind of out of this world and something what I believe to be supernatural. It's like they say for people that have had a supernatural experience, for them, it's kind of like undeniable. Like they know what they witnessed, it was something unique, and they're just not able to really find any other kind of explanation for it. Also, I always found it was really interesting to think that, he had this experience getting onto a St. John city bus. So I don't know what you guys might make of that story, but I always thought it was super, super cool. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing a couple of the stories today. If you yourselves know any chilling winter tales, or if you have any interesting ghost stories that you might like to share, please don't hesitate to send them over to ghoststorycafe@gmail.com. Thank you.